We've talked a lot about college football, the ever-changing landscape of college football, where it is now, where it's going next year, where it's going after that. Ross Dellenger, this is his job. Yahoo Sports senior college football reporter joins us on the program. All right, bring us all up to speed. Bring the audience up to speed of where we are right now with, let's just start with the playoffs, the number of teams, and any other ancillary items that fall in line with that.
Yeah, Dan, well, we know this year we're going to have the same format pretty much, right? We're going to have 12 teams, same format. They're going to go to straight seeding, which they decided last week. But it's starting in 2026 and beyond, where the conversation is around 16 teams. And that does feel like something that's going to happen. Or at least we kind of know that maybe for sure, is that the college football is going to have a 16-team playoff. The question is, how do you decide? How do you determine those 16 teams? So the Big Ten has kind of swung its support behind a model that grants 4 automatic qualifiers to the Big Ten and the SEC each, 2 automatic qualifiers to the ACC and Big 12, 1 for the Group of 6 champion, and then 3 at large. So that would be a multiple kind of AQ type of 16-team format. The SEC, and I'm here at SEC spring meetings now in Destin, they'll talk about that this week, but they as well have been in support predominantly in the athletic director and president room. They have been in support of that model too. But Greg Sankey did say yesterday, the SEC commissioner, that they're not necessarily officially or formally have adopted any kind of support for a model, but that's the one they've been certainly discussing most. Now, the flip side of this, obviously, the Big 12 and ACC, they want more than 2 teams, right? So they're not for this 4-4-2-2-1 type of model. And that's where things could get pretty interesting, Dan. There's a little bit of you might say, a fight brewing among the power conferences.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, the 4-4 with Big Ten and SEC. Now, are they capping that the Big Ten and SEC can only have, that's a maximum of 4 teams in the playoffs?
No, they are not capping. So the 3 at large that are still available would, in theory, still be available for the 5th place, 6th place SEC or Big Ten team.
Wouldn't the SEC have had 6 teams to qualify last year? Does that sound about right?
I think that's right. There were 16. Yeah, there were 6 in the top 16 or whatever, where that would possibly have happened. And actually, it's one thing Greg Sankey did say yesterday, because the 2 formats they're talking about most here, I think, are this 4-4-2-2-1, and then a 5+11 format, which is 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at large. And in that model, the SEC would have gotten as many as 6 teams into the playoff if you did that model and went back for the last several years.
It might be crazy to say this, but I will. Who benefits the most out of all of those?
Well, the SEC and Big Ten, right? In this 4-4 model, certainly the SEC and Big Ten would benefit. Now, if you look at outside of college athletics, with the kind of the brewing fight going on, in just the fight for control and more money, Dan, which everybody right now needs more money, right? Because they have to pay athletes directly starting in about 5 weeks or so. So everybody's after money. So when you look at what's going on in college athletics, just the landscape in general right now, those that benefit outside of the agents and the athletes, right, that are getting paid, and then the agents getting a percentage, are the outside entities that we see maybe trying to get into college athletics with money, which are private equity firms, private capital firms. And that's really been interesting to follow. Dan, 2 weeks ago, the Big 12 and ACC, some of their presidents met with the Smash Capital folks that have this Super League proposal, and they want to infuse $9 billion into college athletics. And it's people like that could benefit and come in and kind of fill a hole, a financial hole where so many schools have one.
We're talking to Ross Dellenger. He's at the SEC meetings. He's Yahoo Sports senior college football reporter. I've been saying for years it would be nice to have a schedule maker. So yeah, for college football, and maybe we get to this 50 schools, and then you have somebody who's going to have the AFC West and the AFC North and AFC, all of those, we create and we treat it like it's the NFL. But I don't know if I'd love relegation. Like I think you could really dress this up and make this so incredibly huge. But I don't know if it just feels like there's too many moving parts and too many people that maybe it doesn't have. Is that a pipe dream of in the next 10 years that we have maybe a 50 school format or 40 schools?
Well, that's what, a lot of these Super League proposals that you've seen, much of it backed by private equity in private capital firms, would design something like you're talking about, right? They think college athletics, specifically college football, is vastly undervalued. They need to consolidate all the media rights, the TV deal. They need to have more uniform scheduling among the conferences, and they need to have more balance in the playoff and the regular season schedule. So I think a lot of folks agree on what you're talking about, trying to get done. The problem is you have all these existing TV contracts with individual leagues. And as you know, college sports has always been kind of fractured into conferences. And it really prevents a lot of this from happening. And it prevents the entity in general of reaping its full value, a lot of people would say. But eventually, Dan, we'll get there. And I think it's coming. I think it's around the corner. I would say 5 to 7 years, we're going to get to a point where this happens, because between the years 2030 and 2032, there's a lot of things that will happen, contracts that come up, Dan, that could really trigger a lot of what we're talking about here. The CFP contract comes up with ESPN. The NCAA basketball tournament contract comes up. The Big 12 and Big 10 TV contracts as well come up. We could see a more of a consolidation of brands there and more of a centralized kind of leadership in college athletics. And I think it's coming.
Now, we have NIL, but we also have collectibles and we have salary cap, right?
That's right. There's a lot going on with, collectives, right, with the compensation, right? We've been in the NIL era the past 4 years where basically boosters are paying athletes for, quote, NIL, when really it is just a salary. And now we're about to get into real salaries, right? Schools on July 1 are going to be able to pay directly players basically salaries. They don't call it that, of course, because they don't want them to be employees, but it basically is a salary that schools will begin paying. But in order to do all that, the House settlement case needs to be approved by the judge. And here we are, probably 5 weeks before it's supposed to be implemented. All this is supposed to be implemented, and the judge has not yet ruled on whether to deny or approve the settlement.
How's it going over with USC? Looks like they're going to end the rivalry with Notre Dame. I don't know if it's spoken about in SEC circles, but we're losing rivalry games here.
We are losing rivalry games, and it's probably one of the more sad things that has happened in college athletics the last few years with conference realignment, right? Is the destruction of these rivalry games. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, right, is another one that we could see go away. It is too bad. I haven't heard it really we talked much about here, but I'll say this: if the playoff format gets finalized as a 4-4-2-2, where you have 4 automatic qualifiers for a Big Ten and an SEC, I think you'll see USC still play that game. I think the CFP format is going to be a big piece in a lot of regular season non-conference scheduling decisions.
Great to talk to you. And it feels like if Lincoln Riley doesn't win this Notre Dame game coming up this October, man, it feels like this is a make or break year for him at USC.
It feels like that, Dan, but you got to remember that buyout of his. I think it's over $80 million at a time when everybody's so stressed, financially stressed with paying athletes. It is tough to see USC paying $80 million plus to fire him, but you never know, right?
What are your thoughts, hopes, perspective for North Carolina with Bill Belichick this upcoming season?
Wow, yeah. Certainly without all the off-the-field stuff going on in college athletics, that would be the big storyline, and it has still been a big storyline this year. You look at their schedule, Dan, and it's pretty good. It's pretty smooth. You could see them going 8-4 or something like that. And I think that would be, a success year one there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success. Year 1 there, but it's going to be, a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a success year 1 there. But it's going to be, I think that would be a certainly interesting to watch. It's been quite an interesting offseason there in Chapel Hill, hasn't it?
Yeah, you got your Carolina blue polo shirt on there.
There
Great
you
to
go.
talk to you. Yeah. Thank you, Ross. We appreciate your time. Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports senior college football reporter. Yeah, nobody's talking about North Carolina if they're going to be any good this year. It's like it's all the drama off the field with Bill and his girlfriend. We'll talk to Jim Jackson. We'll talk some hoops coming up. Final hour on this Tuesday. Dan and the Dan and Stan Patrick Show.